Okay, for today's episode, we've got an interesting topic and we're going to be doing it interview style. I've brought on Melanie Benson, who is an expert in building authority as a leader. So, we're going to be starting out talking about what leadership is and how Melanie even defines that and how you can grow that and what tools and resources can really help you grow authority as a leader. So, let's dive into this. Okay, Melanie, so the first question I want to start with is leadership for you. How do you define leadership, or what is a leader?
Yeah, I think if you'd asked me this question 10 years ago, I might have answered it differently. Today, what I really see a leader is somebody who is impactful in the way that they're not just teaching us information, they're actually upgrading our belief, our vision of what's possible, and they're activating this energy inside of the people who follow them or that are learning from them. I can do something I never believed was possible. And I think for a lot of us, this is about modeling something that we want, we desire, but maybe there's a part of us that hasn't believed it's possible or haven't seen how to do it in a way that feels congruent.
So I like that, and I like your approach of even though we're talking about a leader, you actually talked about the impact in the people that need their help or need that leadership. So how do you determine what makes someone a leader? How do they know that they should step into that role?
Hmm. Well, I think right now the world needs people who are willing to lead. And what makes someone a leader versus maybe someone who has expertise that feels like, okay, anybody can do this, is they actually see that there is a community. They are here to inspire and move into a new possibility or a new outcome. And I think what makes people someone followable or, that will lead others is like there has to be this embodiment of what they stand for and what they believe and what they teach. Like I think we're done with the false leaders, the smoke and mirrors. I think people really want to hear from people that live their message. They're teaching from their real experiences and they stand for something meaningful and impactful in the world. And I think people lead for a lot of reasons. Sometimes it's like you lead and you can be a leader just simply because you're in a place of influence or dominance. I'm talking about people who lead from a space of like they have unique expertise, they have thought leadership, they want to impact and transform in a bigger way. And I think the biggie, this is really important, is they're willing to maybe go down to a level or they're willing to be something that not everybody is going to get and that maybe even will be seen as disruptive or controversial so that they can create conversations that actually make change happen.
I like that. And what you talked about at the end there about the controversial part or whatnot, I usually talk about it as somebody really having a bias. They really have a strong opinion towards something. And for me, I love that. And I've come to value it so much more because of this world of AI that we're in, where
Mhm.
AI kind of takes a broad consensus of everyone's opinion and formulates it into one answer. It's like, you know what? I want somebody who's actually got an opinion from experience and bias. So, I mean, you mentioned the importance of leadership today and people stepping into that role of a leader. Can anyone be a leader?
I think anyone can be a leader. I don't know that everybody's ready or cut out for leadership. I think there's three key things that separates an expert from being a leader. And one is that clarity of what they stand for, like you're talking about the bias, having an opinion, having something they stand for. I also think they have to have the courage to claim it. And I don't know that everybody is in a space of courage. And so you got to stand in the fire. Sometimes you got to stand with your convictions. You got to be willing to go to bat for it. And you have to be willing to be consistent with it. I think one of the places where maybe leadership gets questioned or loses its influence and its impact is when maybe there's a different message every other week or you can tell somebody's kind of testing different paths and there's this lack of consistency of brand of message of conviction and it's hard to follow somebody who you don't truly trust and have that, hey, they're solid, I know I can count on what they say they're going to do. So yes, can everybody lead? Absolutely. There are leadership skills that we can all learn. Is everybody ready to lead and willing to step into that? I don't know, but that's what I do. I help people really step into their thought leadership and their impact at that level when they know just being part of the noise and blending in is not acceptable anymore.
Yeah, awesome. Well, you mentioned a couple things there, like the importance of brand or consistency. Can you talk more about how you can be seen as a leader? So when you are in front of people, or they find you on online or on social media or whatnot, what can a leader do to make sure that they are seen as that leader?
Hmm. Let me say one more thing about can anybody be ready, and then I'll share how you can be seen. Because I think another thing to really embrace is that there are different ways people lead. Some people lead as a visionary, some people are catalysts, some people are connectors, and they're building influence and that ability to move people into action just simply by connecting. Some people lead through depth and really building bonds of trust and credibility through intimacy. So, and then some people are, quiet leaders. They're building movements that have these subtle shifts, but when they do shift, they're profound, right? So we all have to find our way to lead when we're ready. And then here's some really simple things that I feel like separates you from the noise. And I think that's an important distinction. Like leaders, they don't follow the pack in the same way. They're not going to just create more content for the sake of that. You're sharing your bias, as you said, your perspective, your unique convictions, not just tips, not quotes, right? So you have to have a voice for something that moves people. That might mean taking a stand. And so you can do things like be on a podcast with a message or a show like this amazing show that we're on here today. Strategically align with partners and do collaborations to get in front of their audiences. Be in curated communities where like minded people recognize, oh my gosh, you do something I don't do. How can we co create new visibility together or do something really unique to solve this problem or move people towards this goal? And I think if you really have this depth of desire to bring your message, your voice, your work out in a bigger way, you have to decide, am I going to borrow, these audiences or platforms, or am I going to create my own? And that's where real thought leadership, that's where real authority gets built and amplified and accelerated.
I'm really resonating with what you're saying, and it should go without saying that in order to be a leader in something, you really do have to have expertise in that. You really do have to know what you're talking about. And then as you take this step into, building your own brand, building your own platform, and position yourself and doing all the things that you've just recommended, I think that makes a lot of sense. Now, here's a question that I'm excited to see what your thoughts are. How do you persuade others to follow your lead?
And do you mean me personally, or how could someone else do it?
Both. I was leaning towards how could
Okay.
how could someone else do it, but either way,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, so I believe that for me, pressure, manipulation, undue influence creates a tension that causes people to say yes to things that they don't really need or value. And so the longevity of how we can lead that person is short-lived, right? I believe in leading people to a common vision, a common outcome. That's why we see so much power through people joining movements and co-creating a vision and inspiring people to get to an outcome that they're never going to do on their own. So I really think the energy that myself and anyone who's ready to lead, we need to look at the power of resonance. Is my conviction getting in front of the audiences, in front of the people who deeply resonate with this message? And I teach, building a lighthouse message for this very reason. When you have a lighthouse, your resonance is amplified and the right people are like, oh, I don't even know what this is, but I like this person. I like their energy. I like the message. I'm seeing them everywhere. And I'm just deeply moved to want to use this person's services or go on this journey with them. And that's what I think has longevity. Common goals, common vision, common energy, common values built into momentum where everybody is having this like rising tide effect to go to a new possibility.
All right, thanks for sharing that. So we've covered a lot just in the short amount of time on on how to build that authority as a leader. If you were to kind of summarize or maybe share even something new, but what would you say is a tip for the viewer? What would be one thing, like the most effective thing that they could do right now to build that authority as a leader?
I think this is a don't do. Don't try to appeal to everyone. You're a leader for the people who that resonance is there for. So you're not going to lead everybody. You're not going to appeal to everybody. So be willing to polarize. When you stand in your conviction, you build that lighthouse message and you're in proximity to people who need and want and can be part of this rising tide with you. It's all good. But if you try to lead people who aren't interested, it's going to feel heavy. There's going to be lots of friction, and that's when things kind of get messy. And so I don't think you need to be appealing to everyone. You need to appeal to the people who share your convictions and your vision and want to be a part of what you're building.
That's awesome. So I know that you've got a free resource. Why don't you tell us about that?
Oh, sure. So oftentimes people ask me, Melanie, like, how do I go from being a best kept secret to really owning my thought leadership and my authority in the work that I do? And so I put together this framework. It's based on my 26 plus years in business as of this year. And it's what I've done to build a business, build the brand, reboot the brand, pivot it, and continually have this compounding effect around visibility. It's a 7-step framework. And if you go to melaniebenson.com/lead, it's my gift to you. And I'd love to hear what you learn and what you put into action with it.